Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something I found pretty wild, a textual mystery, really, right in the heart of the Quran. It's a paradox that seems to fly in the face of a major modern political narrative. What if the book itself tells a story that's completely different from the one we think we know?
Okay, let's just start with a number, 136. In the Quran, the prophet Moses is mentioned by name 136 times. Just keep that number in your head for a second. Now compare that to this, 4. The prophet Muhammad is mentioned by name only 4 times. When you put those two numbers side by side, 136 versus 4, it forces you to ask a really startling question.
If we're going just by the data in the text, who is the central figure here? Who does the narrative seem to revolve around? When I first saw that comparison, honestly, it stopped me in my tracks.
The source material we're digging into today argues that this isn't an accident. The sheer frequency of these names points to something much deeper, a narrative structure that is fundamentally built on the history of the Israelites.
And this chart just visualizes it so clearly. The scale is just wow. It's overwhelmingly focused on Moses and the children of Israel. Their story of liberation, their journey, it isn't just a story in the Quran, it's a massive, central part of the entire narrative. And this leads to a really powerful conclusion from the source material. These stories aren't just side plots, they are the backbone of the Quranic message. Remember that 136-4 ratio? Well, here's what it means in practice. The source argues that to erase the Israelite connection to the land is to effectively tear out a huge portion of the book itself.
So, if their story is so central, what does the text actually say about the children of Israel and the Holy Land? This is where it gets incredibly specific.
Let's look at what our source calls the smoking gun verse. This is Surah 5, verse 21. This isn't just a story being told, this is Moses delivering a direct command from Allah to his people. And the instruction is crystal clear. Enter the Holy Land which Allah has assigned to you.
Now that word, assigned, is absolutely crucial. The specific Arabic word used is kataba. This isn't a casual term. It means to write for, to decree for. The source explains this implies a permanent, divine decree. It's less of a suggestion and more like a land deed recorded in heaven.
And there's more. Another verse, Surah 7, verse 137, frames the land not just as an assignment, but as a divine inheritance, a reward given specifically to them for the suffering they endured under Pharaoh.
And this verse from Surah 17, well, some scholars interpret it as an outright prophecy of a future return, a promise of an ingathering of the exiles back to this specific land at the end of times.
Okay, so this is where we hit the major paradox. If the text itself, as we've just seen, is so explicit about this divine assignment, why does the modern political narrative we hear so often sound completely different?
This slide just lays the contradiction bare. On one side, you have the explicit text of the Quran. On the other, the dominant modern political stance. The two seem totally at odds. So, how did we get here?
So, how did this massive split between the original text and modern politics actually happen? Well, the sources suggest this was a major shift in interpretation over a long time.
The source points to two key developments. First, a theological argument called supersessionism, which basically says the original promise was revoked because of disobedience and then transferred to Muslims. And second, a more modern political need in the 20th century to erase what were seen as Zionist elements from the text.
But here's the critical counterpoint from the source material. While the Quran absolutely criticizes the Israelites for disobedience over and over again, there is no verse that explicitly says the deal is off, the land is no longer yours. According to this analysis, that revocation verse, it simply isn't in the text.
And here is another absolutely stunning number from our source, 0. That's the number of times Jerusalem is mentioned by name in the Quran. 0. The city, at the very center of the modern political conflict, is textually absent, while the land grant to the children of Israel is textually explicit. It's a shocking contrast.
And this is where the analysis moves beyond politics and into something much deeper, a profound theological problem. To get what the source is arguing here, we have to look at the specific theological term Kufr. It's often translated as disbelief, but its literal Arabic meaning is to cover. So a kafir isn't just someone who doesn't know, it's someone who sees a truth but knowingly and actively covers it up.
And this leads to the source's most powerful question. If that verse is right there in the book, saying Allah assigned the land, but someone intentionally ignores it or covers it for political reasons, what does that make them, according to the Quran's own definition?
According to the analysis, this is what's sometimes called cafeteria Islam, where you pick and choose. You take the verses about prayer and fasting, but you leave the ones about history and divine decrees on the side because they're politically inconvenient.
So we're left with this final, really provocative thought. When someone denies these verses, are they just making a political statement? Or are they, maybe without even realizing it, challenging the integrity of the Quran itself? It's a question that gets to the very heart of this entire paradox.